Is it? Yep. They do appear to be working. I will double check on
single blue light.
Yeah, chat.
Don't need much. I'll get boiling.
Let's see or hear anything from this.
1 2 1 2. Are we streaming then?
We are streaming.
Hey.
Sound is not coming through at the moment.
No sound.
There we go. Yeah, we're good.
Good. Oh, well, hello everyone. You might notice I've got the same subject matter as last week, but that doesn't mean it'll be the same thing. At least I sincerely hope it won't be the same thing. So I'm going to try a different approach tonight, which hopefully will be fun and profoundly successful. Let's see how that plays out. So I've finished my scrapey preparations. No, I don't need any of this. Get rid of all of it. And the blade's gone now. I suppose people need to see the real behind the scenes, don't they? We usually got a new Stanley blade lying around on a nearby surface. Whenever I do an open studio and someone comes around and they've got their kids with them. They go, they're okay to just wander around. Probably not. But
Yeah.
They're very likely to come back injured.
Well, rusty nails.
We
left
chat
out.
and they'll have found something to harm themselves on, and also a big splodge of oil paint on a palette. It's just irresistible. How can you not stick your finger in that? It's like a big red button saying "Do not press."
Hi, Josie.
Oh, hello, Josie.
Josie's already there. Hello.
Oh. Okay, I'm not even going to use any of the same colours I used last week. I'm going to go for a bit of variety. So today I'm returning to the rose, but this time with a similar spirit of experiment, but also a kind of a less of an agenda of what I'm going to end up with, more of a discovery. So I did. Oh, actually, I'll fetch it. I did have a few more goes at following that same process last time, and it's not successful. But I did kind of. I took it to its ultimate conclusion, which was fairly accurate and yet rather lackluster representation of what it was I was seeing. See if we can find that. Oh, maybe I destroyed it in my sleep or something. Ah. Yeah. Oh, that's gone. It's a big place. It's easy for things to get away, isn't it? Well, that's just plain weird. Yeah, so I've lost last week's painting. Don't know where that went.
Last week's painting.
Yeah. Gone, it's not here. Not that it's any great loss.
But you went over it, didn't you?
No, didn't go over it with another painting. I kept it, there it is. So yeah, so last week I did a quick sketch in the first hour, which was this.
That was it. Yeah, I
Which
remember.
works pretty well. Quite happy with that. But it was, bring it closer to the camera. You can see it hasn't got much feature in terms of the paintwork, and it doesn't, it doesn't do a great job of describing the flowers. That was pretty much what I was seeing. I've changed the lighting a bit this week. That was pretty much what I was seeing, and it's insipid. And actually, it turns out I've got to make exaggerations in order to communicate the experience of looking at a flower rather than what it objectively looks like. And I think flowers like sunsets and there's other subject matter which fits into this category that I'm thinking of. What I'm trying to say is there's some things that if you take a photograph of them, they don't look how they look. A photo of a sunset never looks like a sunset. So you've sort of, aerial perspective, that's the other one. So when you're looking at something in the distance and how it contrasts to things in the foreground, how that feels, if you got distant hills and, a landscape, a photograph will flatten everything up. It will make it barely distinguishable from one hill to the next. Whereas when you're there, you're really looking at the distance. But of course, you're focusing on this one little tonal change. You're not, but within the whole scheme of things, it's not as big a jump as you think. So in a painting, you kind of got to exaggerate it. And I think that's what I've been finding out with this. Also, I didn't like the blue background. That was stupid, frankly. But stupid of me to try that. But there you go, live and learn. So today I'm going to keep the palette fairly simple. I'm going to have more than one yellow, just for the sake of using the warm and cool within the flower to create a sort of a differentiation. So my cool yellow will be a yellow ochre. My warm yellow will be a cadmium yellow again. Often if I'm working very light, the cool yellow will be a lemon yellow, and I might put a bit of that out as well. In fact, I will do that a bit. You won't be able to rotate that slightly. No, even then. Let me move this whole thing over a bit. There you are. Let's put out a bit of lemon yellow.
I managed to get the. Does that look alright on the left?
Yeah, happy with that. Okay, a little bit of lemon yellow. Yellows you have to be very careful with because they're some yellows have a very weak tinting strength and they're very transparent. They just disappear into any mix. Oh, look, that's getting out the side. It's a treat, isn't it? I'm wearing my gloves. Okay, let's pop that in there. I need a dedicated pair of gloves just for squeezing out the cadmium yellow, which you don't really want everywhere. If I can fold up the tube, I can get past the bit where it's leaking. Ready. It should behave itself now. So if I stretch these out, pull some of that lemon yellow out, you can see that there. It's quite an old tube, so it's got this greenish quality. And then we've got cadmium and a yellow ochre. I'm going to do the same with the reds. Last time I put out some violet by mistake. I've got some alizarin there, but I'm going to use magenta, which is a very cool red. But quite a clean colour, so it should mix well with the yellow if I need to warm it up without going too muddy. And a bit of cadmium red. Yeah. The other thing I'm going to do is mix a neutral grey, which I can do to a small degree with some buff titanium. Unbleached titanium white. That gives me a fair bit of room before the highlights turn up. So it says white, but if we oh crikey, we're going to need some clean spirit as well. There we go. Yeah, if I get a bit of that and put it on here, it's barely lighter. So that's my white effectively. So I can't be afraid to go a lot darker with the colours of the rose, even though I think of them as light colours, all of them. Oh yeah, last one, a bit of raw umber.
So what did you kind of take away from the painting from last week?
Mostly that I can't paint flowers.
Wasn't kind of what I was going.
No, I know. No, well, that was the thing. I worked on it again, so I had a few other goes. So I ended up with that flower, which is sort of perfectly serviceable, but it's not. It's really not describing the floweriness as I would like it to. It is that in order to do this properly, I've got to exaggerate the qualities of what makes the flower, which is turning up the contrast, turning up the colour, and homing in on the places where it is close together and it's important. I'm still going to work my way from light to dark. The other thing is the form. There's a form to it, and I didn't spend enough time on that. I went very two-dimensional, and it lost the form. Accurate communicating those things are probably more important than accuracy, but I wanted to go down the accuracy route to see what it delivered. Now, if I'd used exactly the same technique with, say, a glass vase, I'd have had a really good picture of a glass vase at the end. I wasn't doing anything wrong exactly. I was doing things which were wrong for a flower, and the qualities of that flower that I wanted to communicate.
Well, something that I found really interesting though is when we were chatting afterwards, and even the next day, I think it was, that you said that if you that with portraits and still lifes that aren't flowers, that you do, you're generally able, if it doesn't quite feel right, you can blend it or make it work. Or
Yeah, and I could have done that, I think, a bit last week, but I wouldn't have got what I was going for. And I guess this is the thing. The only way I can truly describe what I want to paint is by learning how to paint it and then painting it and going that's the thing. So it's not especially useful, but there's particular qualities I want. I don't want it to be overly fiddly.
mm-hmm.
So I want there to be some freedom in the brushwork, because there is, a flower looks like a spontaneous thing. It could look different in an hour as the petals move, or as the temperature changes, or as the light moves around. They're kind of reactive things, and you want some of that life in there. So that's important to me, which is, again, sort of is a vote against the approach I took last week. And also, I don't know how I put it. So I want fresh brush marks with the right colour, in the right shape, landing nice and solid, giving me brightness and intensity of colour, which thin and blended and worked into paint is not going to deliver as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I'm going to need to know which colours do the job. And I kept copying them accurately last week, and they kept not working. And that was mildly frustrating. They worked better when it was loose. So, on that one, it's really loose, but it kind of comes up as a flower, but it's still a bit insipid. It needs more contrast. But the other thing is the form. So this side of the flower is going to be much brighter than that side of the flower, because there's, and yet it's quite hard to focus on that, because you're looking at one bit at a time and your eye adjusts and you go, oh, look at all the yellow in there, or look at all the light in there. What I need to do first is get the colour and the tones in and create a form, like the basic form of the flower, and then find a way to push and pull different elements of it. So I've got my grey, I've got a black, which I can mix more of. I made that very simple.
And the other question that I have is,
yes,
are you going to go for the big, thick brush again?
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Okay, I'm going to have to put some of this down. Let's mix a little bit of dark here just to get some basic shapes. Oh, banging into the thing. Sorry about the wobbly camera.
So James means he'll exaggerate the value of value differences. Of odd differences, I would imagine it being.
Yeah, I mean, when we say value, we're often talking about tone, but there's also color values as well. There's this sort of shapes here, which is going to lead me into. So I'm thinking outlines, but I still want to be thinking sort of bigger shapes, really. Doing its bit, that's doing its bit. I think this down here, it's going to have some highlight, but yeah. that in a bit. Let's get a few of these shapes for where the leaves go as well. So that's going to be important. And I really want this to be big and gestural and really get the language of it. So I'm getting caught up a little bit. I don't want to get too caught up in the drawing. It's just got to be roughly where it goes. Here. Should be a bit lower down, I think. Maybe a bit of that leaf sticking at the bottom. I may have moved it slightly, but that's okay. Right. Use a little bit of oil here.
Is what you're painting slightly larger than the actual subject itself?
Probably like life size. So it's larger than it appears to me. So I'm not working what they call sight size, which is where it's the same size as it appears to my eye. It's slightly enlarged, but you know, you just measure your relative distances, and it.
Sorry, unpick that one for me. Sight size.
Sight size. So what you can do is you can, if you had a piece of glass and an eyepiece to look through, this were a piece of glass in front of that, and you had an eyepiece to look through, so you're always the same distance from the glass, you'd be able to paint over it and exactly on the glass, exactly as it appeared.
Right.
So the size it was to your sight is the same size you would be painting it physically on the glass.
Okay.
Now swap that glass for a canvas and move it to one side, do the same thing. That's the sight size method. So whatever measurement is here moves directly to the canvas.
Right.
So
okay.
I could do things like, in fact, you can't see them together, but I'd be lining up along here to where the top of that flower is there, and then I'd go down to the bottom of this flower and line up there, and that's where the bottom of the flower would be, kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's
That's it. I just never heard the term before, so I needed explaining.
yes, it's a kind of measurement shortcut in a way. It also, you know, it's a little trick that should be used to teach you how to look for relative sort of distances and shapes, because those are the things that are useful. The more common method was to have a plumb line. Every artist would have a plumb line that they could hold up in front of them, and it would dangle vertically, and they'd be able to say, well, that lines up with that, lines up with that, and judge the distances between them. And it's a way of throwing your eye into the world of the abstract. So you can really just sort of, yeah, just actually see what's happening rather than what your brain thinks is happening. Okay, I can always come back to this grey, and at the moment it all looks very dark because it's going onto this light surface, but in time it will give a context to the colours of the flowers. I mean, I won't go too light, so that, like I said, that blue last week was a bit of a mistake. So I want to respect the drawing a bit because I don't want loads of grey paint. I over the top of oh, where's it going? I've lost my place now. There we go. Over the top of where the red and the yellow are going to go. Also not going to put it in too thick here because I am going to work a lighter colour into that as well. But in the meantime, a bit of that in there. A bit of that in there. And I think the looser this is, the better it will look. So these big brush marks are going to do a much better job of describing the roseness. And as long as I keep that colour on the palette, I don't really have to worry about this too much because I can always go back to it. And even if I don't keep it on the palette, it's pretty easy to mix. Break some of those edges there so they're not a distraction. And just take the excess paint off the brush. Not too much pressure, but enough to relieve it. It's going to contribute to the yellow, which is going to go a bit green. I'm going to take a bit of that yellow ochre and pop a little bit of blue and a little bit of raw umber in there. I could have just used the black, but there we go. And I'm going to make a murky green. It's still too warm. I'll put that to one side. You know, because it's already warm, I can get away with putting a bit of iridium in that, I think. Let's see what it does. Ah! That's terrifying. Okay, so once I'm in the realms of the greens, the grades are actually a kind of a violet, weirdly. That's my grey green. Let's do the same thing with a bit of grey, a bit of cad yellow, quite a lot of cad yellow in fact. It really does make it green.
That's surprising. I wouldn't have thought it would do that, but
yes. And that's some of the colours I'm seeing in front of me. And if I put that there, it looks really green on the palette, but actually it's going to work pretty well. And I'll make a slightly lighter version of that using this. And pop a bit more yellow on it too. And again, you hold it up there, that's really bright already. Now I want to be applying these fairly thinly. And when it comes to the shadows, these shadow bits are almost as dark as the background. The background is going to lighten slightly in the middle. I'm just going to put some of those greys in first. This is a slightly lighter colour. Let's see what this does. Lumps. I did not order lumps. Be gone. A lot of these greys and things. Put a few of those in. Right, and now I'm going to go over to this cool green. We're going to have a whole load of that cool green in here. And that's going to kind of scoop around underneath. And then we'll go into this. That's going to need a bit of white in it. Did I already do that? No, no, not quite light enough. It's going to be like a mid-tone green that wanders around here. Not yellow right in the middle, but really turn the colour up over here and in here. Loads of extra yellow to come from the underneath. There we are. And then that's this grey again. So when we get to the brighter part of the flower, it's going to be lighter around here. And the top, a little bit around there. And then much lighter as it moves across. Pop a bit of that yellow back in it. Yeah, as we move across to here. And I can start to see if I've got those shapes, those forms. This was something friend Steve was mentioning to me, talking about someone he'd seen doing a demo, and this had stuck with him, and it got me thinking about it, because these are all things that every artist has dealt with before and processed to a certain extent, but you can't just hold everything in your head. And you know, you have these chats and certain things just stand out, and this was one of those. Okay, so am I jumping ahead too much with these bright yellows? I don't think so. I think I'm going to be comfortable with that. If I need to come back to it. Yeah, I'm sure the yellow belongs in there, but there you go.
So this is effectively laying down a foundation of what you can see as the background colours of the petals.
Yeah. The structure. So the edges and things are going to come in afterwards, and they're going to make a lot of sense of things. This is going to lighten slightly. When the light comes from behind, it's going to give a different cast to it. So I can go a lot brighter, a lot yellower in various places. Okay, I don't want to get carried away. Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment. I'm going to stand back a sec as well. I can see the form though. I can see the light and the dark. Mm-hmm. So these, what I think of as lights, are actually going to be the greys that sort of sit behind the lights. And these are the greys that sit behind the lights over here. And I could exaggerate it a bit more even. I already did it a bit. So maybe I'll try that over here. So I've got some of these greys over here. Let's pop a bit of that on. Is that too grey? It could do with a little bit of that yellow in it. Just a little bit. I'll keep it on the cool side. And what about under here? Yeah, so I'm starting to stretch this out too much now. Bring that up. And under here as well. Darken it a bit, even darken the background in places. Deeper shadow. Hey, that's cheeky. Now I'm seeing certain colours as being like violets and what have you, but it's not really what's there. We can introduce some of those later. First of all, if we just get some of these greys in, and really start to build some of that form, how these petals wrap around. And then I can start to bring in some other things. So I'm going to take some of this cool yellow, oh sorry, no, green really. I'm going to add a bit of magenta to that. And that's going to make a much warmer version. But it's still a long way shy of actually being red. And I'm just going to do it. Yeah, effectively making a very weak magenta next to it. And I've got a soft brush. I'm just going to bring some of this in here. Bring some warms into the shadows up here. Oh, a little bit in there, that's nice. Yeah, that's probably enough of that. And that's mostly coming from the red rose next to it. So is that enough of that? No, a bit more. Anywhere else? No. Okay. Oh. What else can I bring in? Some of these greys, we've got these greens under here. There's more light. There's more light in that yellow. All this needs to get darker. It's more light in the yellow. What do I have on this? Yeah. Let's just do a little flick like that. We'll do a little flick in here as well. Okay, now it looks like I'm onto my light yellow, but I'm still a long way off it. That's going to have a whole light bit over the top, and then flicking that a bit in here. That's already got some. And that's the yellow I was putting in here as well. I don't think I need more of that. Nope. Yes, no. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to place around some of these shapes, some of these forms. I feel like I'm already getting drawn into the, what would you call it? Into the details. There's some of my shadow greys. No. So I am getting caught up in it again. I can tell. Well, this brush is perished. It's horrible. Might be good for thick paint. I don't know. Maybe before I do any more to this, I should get into the red. I don't know. Oh, that might have just cured itself. Right. Okay. So when it comes to putting the lights on, I'm going to need more fluid paint. I'm also going to go a bit greener and darker nearer to the edges. So underneath here, I can tell I'm going to want a bit more dark in there. Underneath here, I'm going to want a bit more dark in that too. Ah, okay. Move it around. I'm losing my place now.
Do you find with painting things like this, it takes a while for you to actually see what it is that you're painting?
Oh yeah, and even then, it's still finding your way in. I mean, this is lots of complicated shapes arranged in quite a difficult way. So to have the whole thing mapped out in your head is sort of nigh on impossible, really.
I always used to find this when I was sort of learning a new juggling trick, that you'd keep going and going and going, and then all of a sudden you would like see where the balls needed to go, and then you had to put them in those sort of in that pathway. But it took a while for you to figure out as to where everything actually had to go.
Yeah, so let me get this straight. You just likened the fine arts to juggling.
Juggling the fine art.
It isn't though, is it? It's a circus trick, is what it is.
It's not a trick.
It is. Like balancing a football on your head is a trick. Although actually, you know, I think we ought to have a lot of respect for the fine art of balancing a football on your head. Sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm not sorry.
Josie asks, aren't you tempted to take up painting, Graham?
Not before he learns to balance a ball on his head like a seal.
Am I tempted to take up painting? I don't know.
I think you probably heard me say everything useful by now. Everything useful I could possibly offer. So you should be able to at least do this. Well, to be honest, what couldn't? You couldn't at the moment. It's but this is part of the. Well, I guess the thing is, do you think if you were to embark on the struggle you see me bang my head against every week, you would get the same satisfaction from it that I do?
Well, part of the reason it's here is because I see you struggle every week.
Yeah, you seem to enjoy that. Yeah, good.
I feel it would be a bit remiss of me if I didn't ever pick up a paintbrush and use some paints based on the fact that we've been doing this for so long. I've got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's an element of not leaving it too long, because then it becomes like that sort of thing that I'm afraid to do.
Yeah. Well, I have already, thought about how I might do a like a paint along with someone there, where I kind of give instructions, and that they can make mistakes and things, and I can berate them for it.
Yeah. Perhaps the live stream one week is me.
Yeah. Just getting
James is ill this week, so
I once got taken when I was at university to a spiritualist church, which was sort of, I think one person was kind of into it, and the others were kind of going, "No, you've got to see this." And they were nobody wanted to be disrespectful, and we weren't rude or anything like that, but we sort of thought we'd go along and go, well, what's all this about? And basically it's well, it wasn't like, I guess they had the excuse of some religious convictions and stuff, but it was mostly like a mediumship reading, this idea that they were speaking to some greater knowledge from themselves. But anyway, the time I went, the regular person who did it wasn't there, so this other guy just sort of went up to have a go and I just couldn't do it at all. He knew nothing about cold reading other than what he'd seen, and imitating what you've seen isn't the same as doing it. And it was so funny.
And then it's not the same as doing it in front of an audience.
Yeah, he's going, so I'm getting a P or something like that, like, and without the conviction, and you're thinking, no, you're not. You just thought of a letter. Like, but I guess that's kind of what they think is happening, is that there's some sort of a deeper communication going on. So if he thought of the letter P, that must have been for some reason that wasn't just because his independent mind thought of the letter P. And who knows, he might be right. Who am I to? But yeah, but he got absolutely no hits. It was so funny. It was just sat there, people going, "What do we do?
Yeah.
Do we join in with the lie, or do we just watch him die on his arse?" It was difficult, but very funny.
I suppose the other thing with me doing like a live stream paint of a week would just then anybody that tunes in because they want to emulate you, and you.
No, nobody wants to emulate
the stuff that you do, which is sort of incredible. At least, like, I'll do something. Well, at least I'm better than that.
But yeah, okay, you could give solace and comfort to a good many people. I don't think what I do is I don't think it's what was the word? I don't think it's dispiriting to anyone. I hope people watch it and think, well, if that idiot can do it, I can. And they'd be absolutely right to think that. Precisely the message I'm trying to convey. Okay, this is looking better than last week, but there's still every opportunity to ruin it.
That's the spirit.
So now I'm working towards the whites, but not really the bright whites yet. And there is this sort of language of how these petals sit against each other. Especially here, and the light glowing from the inside outwards. And little hints of it. Maybe I should have another brush at the same time to really put in the big highlights. Maybe that's not necessary. Hmm. Okay, now we're ready for this bit.
Kind of off topic, but really what I thought was quite an interesting fact today
What's that?
is that alpacas, their wool is only at its best of its first sort of shearing, that's the word.
Got there in the end. Oh, right.
And that every subsequent shearing that it has thereafter, the wool isn't quite as good.
All right. So the alpaca itself becomes more uncomfortable the more often it's shorn.
Well, yeah, but then I mean, this took us down a really interesting. I was going to say rabbit hole, but this is getting far too much like a menagerie.
An alpaca hole, if we're being strict about it.
Of surely then the whole sort of ruse of having an alpaca farm is like a pyramid scheme.
Right, you sell them on afterwards.
Yeah.
I imagine that people are pretty wise to it, aren't they?
And tell them that, oh, alpaca wool is amazing. It's brilliant. You ought to have these ones. Having known that they've already been shorn once.
Yeah. And only been shorn twice.
Yeah.
Well, a careful lady owner.
It tickled me, that was all. It's the sort of randomness that some of the conversations that happen.
I've got a bit more sympathy with the animal, to be honest, because there it is luxuriating in its lovely wool, going, this is great. And then they get shorn and it grows back inferior wool.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's into like some scratchy jumper going, oh yeah, hate it.
Ends up like dreadlocks.
I'm really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's all your fault. Okay. There's a few little gestures here. The temptation is to go back in with this brush everywhere, but I can't do that, but I can stick a bit of extra yellow on there. Already done that one. That will do it. Okay, if I chuck some highlights on now, I'm really hoping this will work. So let's go pretty close to the white now. Borrow a little bit of that yellow, put it on there.
We're about sort of 3 minutes to 8 o'clock, just so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We've been streaming for 50 minutes so far, though.
Okay. That's good to know.
I think that's looking fantastic.
Okay, so while I'm on these lights, this little dink and then the top of that, and this is where I'm going to load a bit more white in there. And here, top of that crease, so dinks in, and then we've got this lovely folded over bit. I've got that there. So these lights are caused by different things. Sometimes it's the light coming through the petal. That should never be as bright as the light bouncing straight off it. So let's go in and put my brightest lights in. There's one. There's one. Pop a bit in there. Okay, that's coming through. That's not bouncing off. A few nice little edges and things there. Where else? Yeah, on here. And a few of these little bright bits inside here. That one's along the top as well. That's as close as I'm going to get to a detail on that. Ah, ugly. And what else? Okay, in here. Boom. Now it's mixing in. I'm going to put a bit more yellow in that. And come inside. Some of these other little bits. Oh, it's nearly there, isn't it?
Josie's going to have to disappear at the break, so she's going to look forward to seeing the rest of it later.
Oh, well, thank you very much for popping your head in. And yeah, that's that great. A few bits in here. Okay, so that tonal control should have helped out here. No, it should have been a bit calmer. Like that. A bit of extra light on there. And when it comes to it, I might even more yellow on. We can turn that up in here. No, that's too much. Under here, definitely inside. Swoop. Flashes there. If I work that in, that'll soften that down. That's good. A bit into here. So I guess the next thing I can do is I can take that, a bit of this magenta. Oh, that's way too much. A bit of white. Oh, didn't really better use this one. And some of that grey. I can start making some lighter grey shapes to come in here, and it will give a slightly darker edge because of the previous one. Okay. Let it get darker around the bottom. I think that's a much better job than the flower I attempted last week. So Shall we not have a break so Josie can't leave? Important things to do. Yeah. Okay, that is a good time for a break. How about, oh, hang on. Not quite there. While I've got this colour on, I'm going to see if there's other places it can be introduced in here. Which it can, in there. In there. No, that's all right then. Yeah, in fact, it could actually get lighter underneath this. Like that. There we go. I put a few really dense greens in, just for context. That. And that. In fact, this one. I've lost my place now somehow. Does that give it some context? I'd say it does. That's probably a good place to stop. I'm definitely on the verge of wrecking it. I don't restrain myself. Haha. Yeah, quite happy with that.
Good. So we'll be back in 10, 15 minutes, something along those lines.
Yeah. welcome back. So I've got last week's disaster. So you can see it's just a slight change in contrast and color intensity, saturation. If you're a computer user, chroma if you're a painter. Ooh, there it is. Yeah, it's all the same thing. So yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to do the red one, which hopefully should be a little bit quicker. And I'm going to do a bit of drawing first. And we'll use the red just to differentiate it. No, do I need to do that? No, I don't think I do actually even. No, I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to mix a few colours, which is sort of duller and browner on the one side. I'm going to hold this back as a, yeah, as a kind of as a black. So when I get to the really deep shadows and in the rose, I can use that rather than the one I mixed for the background. And then they can talk to each other if they need to. Oh, this is quite hard to pin down. I'm going to borrow a little bit of that yellowy green, so actually make this a bit more orangey. How's that going to look? Nowhere near dark enough. Right, I'm going to stick some magenta in here. These are all transparent colours, so I need some opacity. So I put a bit of white in there. Maybe it should be grayer. Actually, I might use a little bit of this back here. Yeah, still nowhere near as intense as that transparent one. I'm going to want light versions as well. I'll pop these over here. And not getting too light too soon. So magenta and yellow to make my deeper red. Oh, I think I'm going to have some difficulty with this. I might have to visit a different red pigment. Yes, the alizarin goes a lot further. And again, that's light coming through the petals, and there's light that's landing directly on it. Oh, there's quite a few things going on here. So where the light's landing directly, it's going almost pinky. Not sure how I'm feeling about these colours and their intensity. If I match tones, it's quite hard because it's so. It's such a strong colour. It's quite hard to see the tonal values, but I think that glowing colour. This should be a certain amount lighter than what's behind it, which it is. I think that'll be okay. So yeah, so I've got this mixture of darks, and I guess I'm going to use a number 10. And let's start with these middle ones. I'm not using any oil this time. So yeah, there's an intensity of colour there. Yeah, I can add extra into that as it goes. So add extra darks in. Most of these variety of colours live around the middle. Not really doing much to revisit the drawing. I'm sort of trusting what I've got. I can always make little changes later on as I go. This is also going to come in here and in here. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, a little bit in here. Ah, it's getting too fuzzy now. It's really hair, which nobody ordered. Okay, so it's quite a thin layer of paint, so that's going to allow for plenty of extra colour to go on top of that. Yeah, same here. So there's these dark edges, I want to keep those. Now if I go to my darker one here, let's put some extra shadow in this side. It's going to go around on the underneath, and there's another. Cool. Darker than that, I think. Yeah, it's quite purpley. Yeah, so it's getting a bit thicker now. I don't go too far with it. Previous red. And where else is that turning up? In here. No, not there, there. That was fine. Yeah, there's a lot to keep your eye on around here. But at this point, I think I can start to find some other bits and pieces that are going on. Okay. Again, take all the excess paint off that. And I'm going to use some of this grey, a bit of light. Like a slightly lighter, cooler version of this. Is that too light and too cool? Possibly. Will I get away with it? Oh. Yes, it's very sort of greasy, this sort of paint surface. It's got quite shiny. It's hard to see what's going on. I might just push that back a bit. It's going to mix an awful lot with what's on the surface. And I only need enough to just sort of stain it. There you go. But the forms are already starting to turn up, which is quite interesting. Where was I? Oh, yeah, here. I need a second brush. Go with tan, and I'm going to need a bit of cadmium here. And I can put in some sort of higher temperatures where I need them, like here. That might be a bit much, but we'll see. In here, it'll get brighter as it goes along. Oh, definitely in here. Tiny little dab of white to go in it. And that warmer red turns up where there's light coming through from behind. This will get brighter later on, but as a placeholder, good to get the temperature in. Same thing up here, it's going to get brighter, but it'll hold its spot for the moment. It's going to get a bit more crimson. Yeah, interesting. Where else is it going to get warmer? A little bit in here and in here. So yeah, so I'm finding my way, I'm mapping my way around the subject matter now. And certain places you can get, and go for a cooler lighter. Which again, I'll put a little bit more alizarin in there, just to give it a bit more bite. Let's go around here. Yeah, that's not yellow enough. Where will it go? Where was it? Okay, here. So once that's on, it should put the other one into context. Similarly here. And I can go a little bit brighter as well, so it's quite a lovely sort of velvety colour. I'm going to introduce a few sort of brighter edges and maybe warm it up ever so slightly. A little bit of yellow in there. People are wondering about ideas of warm and cool. You can think of the colour wheel, and wherever you are on the colour wheel, that's your hue angle. So I'm definitely around the reds here. And when I add yellow to it, it's pushing me towards the orange. And orange is sort of the warmest colour. But you can be, yeah, you could be in the greens or the blues. You put a bit of orange in it, you're still in the greens and the blues, but you've made that colour warmer. So it's not an absolute in that respect. It's all relative. Okay, I've finished that.
You finding it easier in the red than you are painting white?
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh, it's so much easier because it's so much easier to see the intensity of colour.
This is, doesn't look quite as opaque either.
What do you mean?
Light doesn't seem to be as strong traveling through it. As in, like, you get a
yes,
petal
so it's less translucent, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. So we get a bit more of that cad red. Pop a bit of light in it, a little bit of yellow. And steer it back towards the cad red until it's sort of proper intense. And now we can start to put in things like this. That's too much. Steer it back in with a bit of alizarin. There we go. That's a lovely intense red colour. It's coming through the insides of the petals from the light the other side. And it's defining certain things like the shape of that petal there. It's a sort of glow behind that, which creeps up and fades out, and then it fades out in this direction. A bit of light on the edge of that. Now, these sort of lights coming through here. And also here, where are they brightest? They're brightest at the top. They fade down. Where else can I see those? Sort of under here. Maybe a slightly brighter version next to it. It's going to give me this little swoop of the edge of a petal. It's rather lovely. Where else is that happening? Maybe a little bit along there. I'll pop a few of those warm colours into that. A little bit along here, sort of frilly top edge. And, ooh, so it's tempting to just start chucking this all over the place, but that's not what I want to do. There's also places where it can get lighter. Ooh, okay, it's getting away here. Okay, nice little details in there. What is going on? Got that. Yes, we've got a bit of warm on the edge of that petal. A bit warm on the edge of that one. It's just those highlights, really. And crank those up with some white. Is that doing it? Okay, last bit is to go in with some extra darks. I'm going to use a slightly smaller brush. I'm going to go to my original black that I mixed. Oof. What's this doing? Put a bit of extra dark there. I don't want to be yeah, I don't want to just chuck this on willy-nilly. It's got to make sense of some things for me. So slightly. It's a bit. Still not 100% on it, but well, now I'm not cleaning any of these brushes. Pop them down here. Like that. I'm going to come back to the background, and I'll do that before I put the leaves in, although the leaves will make a lot of sense of things. Now with here, I think there's going to be something to be said for putting some extra light behind this. See, that's still a little bit thinner than that brush, which is no good. Needs to be completely under control. And take some of that, some of this, and a little bit of orangey colour. A little bit of oil, tiny bit. Let's liven things up around here a little bit. So that paint's going on nicely. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I want to sharpen a little bit of this up. But that's okay. I think that'll do it. Hint at where the light's coming from as well. Just chucking a bit more up there. Oh yeah, that's more leaves. Yeah, that's entirely in the wrong place, but there you go. Fix that up. Go back to the original colour a little bit. Pull it down towards the bottom, which will give less contrast to the leaves. Not working up there. Yeah, I guess that's fine. So last things. Let's mix some of that green. I'm going to use some Viridian for weight, some raw umber, neutrality. And that's going to be my most intense green. I'm going to put a little bit of magenta in that just to turn it towards a black. Ugh. It's still quite green. Yeah, I want it to be. I think I do want it to be, but yeah. A bit more raw umber, a little bit more magenta. So we're keeping the yellow out of it. It stays looking dark. Same brush, a little bit of oil. Do one of those serrated leaves, they're quite fun. This is where the darkest darks of the leaves go on. And after this, they're all going to soften down. So here, they're sort of mixing in. Same thing here, let's put a nice big leaf on that. What else? We'll go a bit more olive underneath this. Oh, we can do that for the stalks. Okay, I'm winging it a bit here. I wonder if this will do the job for what's underneath it. Yeah, it does rather. It's going to be lighter and greener, so maybe a bit more of this. No, maybe a bit more of that. Okay, I'm getting caught up in little details now.
What, 10 minutes?
Okay.
8 to 9.
Thank you. That should be yellower. And that'll do it. Okay, so all the way over to this yellow here. I went too early on that, didn't I? So I'm just using up the existing colours. I'm not mixing any more. Some of that dark red for down here. Not dark enough. Oh, I didn't clean off the brush properly. Or at all, in fact. So I'm going to do one more pass at the end with the background colour and try and bring out a few more bits and pieces using that. Go back into this green here. Very grey. There. I'm not going to do any more detail than that. Everything else is just a sort of a mess of green from here. No more details. I'll shadow down one side of that. A bit more light on the other. Okay. Well, I've got that grey. Could go a bit lighter than that. Not much, mind. So last bit. Intense, yeah. It's going to be here. And here. There. Flash of it here. Oh, I missed a few bits. Use this one. Okay, really bright yellow out of that. Super bright one out of that. I'm going to brighten it up even more. Pop a bit of that on there. A little flash of light off this. You can have a little bit on it. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I think that'll probably do. It's going to overfiddle with it if I'm not careful. So yes, last thing. go back to this background colour, and I'd rather lost the lighter version I'd made. So this slosh a bit in there. That's distracting. Anywhere else I've missed it out from? Don't think so. The big brush, didn't I? Oh, what's the time?
2 minutes to.
I've not heard the bongs yet.
No.
Oh, no rush then. Right, that's my original colour that I used for the background. I'm going to put some of this in it. I might warm it up a little bit. Yeah, it took me quite a while to find that colour originally, didn't it? A bit of oil in there. There we are. Bong, 9 o'clock. Scumble that in the corners and what do I think? What do I think? I think it's kind of there. I think if I had more time, well, I'd probably wreck it. If I had more time generally doing the painting, I might have gone for a cooler background. But I tried that last time, so I want to sort of get away from it. Well, I hope that's an improvement from what I attempted last week. Yeah, so the cooler
Massive
background doesn't work
improvement.
as well. This is quite kind to it. There's little things I could be fussy with. I really wanted to be. I like getting that shape there. Anything else? Probably ought to stop fiddling with it, oughtn't I? What are we going to sign that in? Well, I've got plenty of the red left. I'll use that. Yeah, and that will be available to view and purchase tomorrow in Beanshot Cafe.
Surely you've got to be pleased with that one.
Yes, all right. It's got something to it. Yeah, there's a fresh delivery of paint which I'm quite happy with. There's other things. So, okay. I now realise I should have done these leaves much more carefully, or just splurged them and not worried about it.
Is creeping in?
No, I'm not going to. I'm not even going to spatula it. It's a lesson, you know. Every painting's a lesson, and this one's taught me some things. So yeah, let's have a little close up of it. Oh. Okay, well that's my view of the flowers. I'm zooming in, so this isn't from where I'm sitting, but it's in the same line of sight. And you can see all the yellows in that rose, and that's what I've tried to exaggerate and pull out of here. So you can see I've rather overdone it with the yellows, but up close it's simple strokes and kind of one-off individual bits. And so when you're actually painting it, you're going, well, that doesn't look like it, and that doesn't look like it, and that doesn't look like it. And you just have to hope it all comes together.
Like a collected thing, isn't it?
Similarly with this, there's some interesting effects with the different temperatures of colour, but I wanted to keep it quite close together, quite literal. And there's another interesting thing. So you look at the petals there, you can see the darken at the tips.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to keep a bit of that here. And so getting to the light to imitate, or the paint to imitate the way the light moves as well is a big part of it. So yeah, this is on a panel, so I could chop it down. So I might chop it down to about this. Yeah, it might work. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh. Well, thank you for coming in, and hope you enjoyed it. And many thanks to my beautiful assistant Graham for putting up with me and making it all work. So well done, that man.
Good.
I hope the sound was good. Fiddling with my microphone now. And oh, there you are. Hi. And next week, who knows?
Who knows next week?
See what happens next week. So in the lap of the